Well, I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure what happened, but I'm not sure what happened at all. But we're gonna continue and see what happens. So there'll be two videos this time. We'll see what happens. Okay, but let's keep going. It stopped stringing for some reason. Okay, where was it? I see him now. I'm sorry. That's all right, but I've been far worse than you know. I really believed it was him. I mean, yesterday, when he warned us not to go down to the fir wood. And I really believed it was him tonight when you woke us up. I mean, deep down inside. Or I could have if I'd let myself. But I just wanted to get out of the woods and oh, I don't know. What am I to say to him? Perhaps you won't need to say much, suggested Lucy. Soon they reached the trees, and through them the children could see the great mound, Aslan's house, which had been raised over the table since their days. Our side don't keep very good watch, muttered Trunken. We ought to have been challenged before now. Hush! Said the other four, for now Aslan had stopped and turned and stood facing them, looking so majestic that they felt as glad as anyone can who feels afraid, and as afraid as anyone can who feels glad. The boys strode forward. Lucy made way for them. Susan and the dwarf shrank back. Oh, Aslan, said King Peter, dropping on one knee and raising the lion's heavy paw to his face. I'm so glad, and I'm so sorry. I've been leading them wrong ever since we started, and especially yesterday morning. My dear son, said Aslan. Then he turned and welcomed Edmund. Well done, were his words. Then, after an awful pause, the deep voice said, Susan. Susan made no answer, but the others thought she was crying. You have listened to fears, child, said Aslan. Come, let me breathe on you. Forget them. Are you brave again? A little, Aslan, said Susan. And now, said Aslan in a much louder voice with just a hint of a roar in it, while his tail lashed his flanks. And now, where is this little dwarf, this famous swordsman and archer who doesn't believe in lions? Come here, son of earth, come here. And the last word was no longer the hint of a roar, but almost the real thing. Wraiths and wreckage, gasped Trunken in the ghost of a voice. The children, who knew Aslan well enough to see that he liked the dwarf very much, were not disturbed, but it was quite another thing for Trunken, who had never seen a lion before, let alone this lion. He did not, the only sensible thing he could have done, that is, instead of bolting, he tottered towards Aslan. Aslan pounced. Have you ever seen a very young kitten being carried in the mother cat's mouth? It was like that. The dwarf, hunched up in a little miserable ball, hung from Aslan's mouth. The lion gave him one shake, and all his armor rattled like a tinker's pack. And then, hey presto, the dwarf flew up into the air. He was not as safe as he had been in bed, though he did not feel so. Oh, he was as safe as if he'd been in bed, though he did not feel so. As he came down, the huge velvety paws caught him as gently as a mother's arms and set him, right way up too, on the ground. Son of Earth, shall we be friends? Asked Aslan. Yes, panted the dwarf, for it had not yet gotten its breath back. Now, said Aslan, the moon is setting. Look behind you. There is the dawn beginning. We have no time to lose. You three, you sons of Adam and son of Earth, hasten into the mound and deal with what you will find there. The dwarf was still speechless, and neither of the boys dared to ask if Aslan would follow them. All three drew their swords and saluted, then turned and jingled away into the dusk. Lucy noticed that there was no sign of weariness in their faces. Both the High King and King Edmund looked more like men than boys. The girls watched them out of sight, standing close beside Aslan. The light was changing. Low down in the east, Erebir, the morning star of Narnia, gleamed like a little moon. Aslan, who seemed larger than before, lifted his head, shook his mane, and roared. The sound, deep and throbbing at first like an organ, began on a low note, rose and became louder, and then far louder again, till the earth and air were shaking with it. It rose up from that hill and floated across all Narnia. Down in Miras's camp, men woke, stared palely into one another's faces, and grasped their swords. Down below, I'm sorry, down below, where am I? Down below, that in the great river, now at its coldest hour, the heads and shoulders of the nymphs, the great weedy bearded head of the river god, rose from the water. Beyond it, in every field and wood, the alert ears of rabbits rose from their holes. The sleepy heads of birds came out from under their wings. Owls hooted, vixens barked, hedgehogs grunted, and trees stirred. In towns and villages, mothers pressed their babies close to their chests, staring with wide eyes. Dogs whimpered, and men leapt up, groping for light. Far away on the northern frontier, the mountain giants peered from the dark gateways of their castles. What Lucy and Susan saw was a dark something coming to them from almost every direction across the hills. It looked first like a black mist creeping on the ground, then like a stormy wave of a black sea rising higher and higher as it came on, and then at last, like what it was, woods on the move. All the trees of the world appeared to be rushing towards Aslan, but as they drew nearer, they looked less like trees. And when the whole crowd, bowing and curtsying and waving thin, long arms to Aslan, were all around Lucy, she saw that it was a crowd of human shapes. Pale birch girls were tossing their heads, willow women pushing back their hair from their brooding faces to gaze on Aslan. And the queenly beeches stood still and adored him. Shaggy oakmen, lean and melancholy elms, shock-headed hollies, dark themselves, but their wives, all bright with berries, and happy rowans, all bowed and rose again, shouting, Aslan, Aslan, in their various husky or creaking or wave-like voices. The crowd and the dance around Aslan, for it had become a dance once more, grew so thick and rapid that Lucius was confused. She never saw where certain other people came from who were soon capering about among the trees. One was a fine youth, dressed only in a fawn skin, with vine leaves wreathed in his curly hair. His face would have been almost too pretty for a boy's if it had not looked so extremely wild, also. You felt, as Edmund said when he saw him a few days later, there's a chap who might do anything, absolutely anything. He seemed to have a great many names. Bromius, Basileus, and the Ram were the three of them. There were a lot of girls with him, as wild as he was. There was even unexpectedly someone on a donkey, and everybody was laughing and everybody was shouting, Eon, 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 oi, 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 oi. Is it a romp, Aslan? Cried the youth, and apparently it was. But nearly everyone seemed to have a different idea as to what they were playing. It might have been Tig, but Lucy never discovered who was it. Tig is British flag. It was rather like blind man's buff, only everyone behaved as if they were blindfolded. It was not unlike Hut the Slipper, but the slipper was never found. What made it more complicated was that the man on the donkey, who was old and enormously fat, began calling out at once, refreshments! Time for refreshments! And falling off his donkey and being bundled onto it again by the others, while the donkey was under the impression that the whole thing was a circus and trying to give off a display of walking on its hind legs. And all the time, there were more and more vine leaves everywhere, and soon not only the leaves, but the vines. They were climbing up everything. They were running up the legs of the tree people and circling around their necks. Lucy put up her hands to push back her hair and found she was pushing back vine branches. The donkey was a mass of them. His tail was completely entangled, and something dark was nodding between his ears. Lucy looked again and saw that it was a bunch of grapes. After that, it was mostly grapes, overhead and underfoot and all around. Refreshments! Refreshments! Roared the old man. Everyone began eating whatever hot houses your people may have. You have never tasted such grapes. Really good grapes, firm and tight on the outside, but bursting into cool sweetness when you put them in your mouth. Were one of the things the girls had never quite had enough of before. Here, there was more than anyone could possibly want, and so no table manners at all. One saw sticky and stained fingers everywhere, and though mouths were full, the laughter never ceased, nor the yodeling cries, till all of a sudden everyone felt at the same moment that the game, whatever it was, and the feast ought to be over. And everyone flopped down breathless on the ground and turned their faces to Aslan to hear what he would say next. At that moment, the sun was just rising, and Lucy remembered something and whispered to Susan, I say, Lou, I know who they are. Who? Asked Susan. The boy with the wild face is Bacchus, and the old one on the donkey is Silenus. Don't you remember Mr. Tumnus telling us about them a long time ago? Yes, of course. But I say, Lou, what? I wouldn't have felt safe with Bacchus and all his wild girls if we met them without Aslan here. I should think not, said Lucy. And that's the end of the chapter. So the next chapter is chapter 12, and that is called chapter 12, Sorcery and Sudden Vengeance. That was quite a wild, crazy party with Bacchus and all those people and the trees running around. It's a pretty funny part of the story, and thanks for tuning in today, and I hope that all of you are doing well, all of you are safe, and that you have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.